Bye, Joan. Okay. Okay. We would now like to begin one of the most important parts of today, and that is the award presentation to Durham's Most Outstanding Cardiac Nurse, Emerge Nurse, and Paramedic of the Year. Today we have Dr. Anthony Stone, the Chief of Staff of Lakeridge Health, and Mr. Tom McHugh, the Executive VP of Clinical Programs and Regional Cancer Services, with us here today to present the awards to this year's recipients. I'd now like to call upon Dr. Vargava to introduce our two recipients for the Most Outstanding Cardiac Nurse and Emerge Nurse for the year 2019. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Anthony Stone. And Tom McHugh.
Sorry, let me just locate myself here. There we go. Got it. I got it. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for inviting me back. I do appreciate the opportunity to be here, to recognize and support our team members in general, and I know you would agree with me. We have a fantastic team of incredible nurses, EMS, who are truly the front line of healthcare that we provide, and critical to delivering high quality and a great patient experience. So again, thanks very much for inviting me. So I'm going to start with introducing the Most Outstanding Cardiac Nurse Award. This award has a special element as the winners selected after a vote amongst their own peers, which is a huge honor. This is a true test of a deserving recipient. This year, the Heart Care Most Outstanding Cardiac Nurse Award will be presented to Emma Bradbury. More to say, Emma. So every person that has ever worked with Emma will tell you that she's a very helpful team member and an incredibly capable and competent team leader. Emma graduated from UOIT in 2013 and has been working at Lakeridge, Oshawa for the past 6 years. She became interested in cardiology and enjoyed advancing her education and dedicating herself to the specialty over the years. Her inspiration for becoming a nurse came from her mom, who has been a nurse for over 30 years. Emma is a caring, helpful, and generous lady with a calm personality, which is truly appreciated in the numerous stressful situations that occur on a daily basis on the cardiac floor. She's extremely knowledgeable in the medical and cardiac field and has great critical thinking skills. Emma has a great love for traveling and a passion for shopping, according to her friends. In fact, some of her friends would say she has a phenomenal collection of dresses in her closet. Maybe one day she will start a dress rental business. So Emma enjoys teaching student nurses and hopes to take on more leadership roles in the future. Emma has a pleasant, positive attitude and is a strong patient advocate. These are the qualities that have contributed to her being nominated for this award. So it's my privilege to present Emma Bradbury as the Most Outstanding Cardiac Nurse of 2019. Congratulations, Emma.
proud family here.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. That's terrific support. So congrats again to Emma. So Most Outstanding Critical Care Nurse Award is presented to an individual who has shown exemplary work ethic, care, and dedication in their role in the critical care unit. Again, in this case, the awardee is selected through a vote of their peers. And this year, I'm honored to present to you this year's Most Outstanding Critical Care Nurse Award recipient. This year's award recipient, Rosemary Mitchell. Rosemary delivers superior care to all of her patients and is very passionate about her profession. She has exceptional communication skills and communicates effectively to ensure that patients and their families receive the best care possible. Rosemary's been a nurse for 15 years and a CCU nurse for 13 of those. Rosemary graduated from Durham College nursing program in 2004 and was hired by Lakeridge Health Cardiopulmonary Unit straight out of nursing school. Additionally, while working on the cardiopulmonary unit, Rosemary worked for Dr. Bargava's cardiac rehab clinic in 2005. Rosemary truly found her home in CCU and has found every day rewarding, even though it can have many ups and downs. Critical care nursing involves seeing patients and families face their toughest health challenges, as you can imagine. Rosemary's core belief is to treat every patient as if they were her own family and provide compassionate and excellence through every act of nursing. Rosemary is a proud mom of one daughter who's also about to enter Durham College herself, the loving aunt to 10 nephews and nieces. Rosemary enjoys reading and knitting, but is most happy when her time outside of work is spent recharging with family and friends. So I'm proud to present you with the Most Outstanding Critical Care Nurse Award. Congratulations, Rosemary Mitchell. So congratulations again to Rosemary. So this is our second year. This is our second year of presenting the Most Outstanding Emergency Room Nurse Award. This award is presented to an individual who has shown exemplary work ethic, care, and dedication in their role in the emergency department at Lakeridge Health. When working in the emergency department in such a fast-paced environment, one always has to be ready for whatever challenges come their way. And I spent 22 years working in the ER. I'm very pleased to be able to present this individual who I absolutely know to be deserving. So again, in this case, the awardees are selected through a vote of their peers. And I'm honored to present to you this year's Most Outstanding Emergency Room Nurse Award recipient, Janet Easton. Janet always knew she wanted to follow in her mom's footsteps to become a nurse. She's been a registered nurse for 27 years and started at Lakeridge Health in the coronary care unit for 2 years, followed by 23 years in the emergency department, where she is now an ER coordinator. She's very passionate about her profession, with a special passion for becoming an ER nurse because of the diversity of care that ER nurses give to patients of all ages, ranging from minor ailments to major traumas. Janet feels blessed to work with such a great team of nurses, SAs, clerks, and physicians, and believes that as a team they truly make a difference. And that is true. At the beginning of each shift, she thinks, whose life are we going to change today? She always ensures a great quality of care for patients in the emergency situations. She's empathetic and caring towards her patients and always has a positive attitude. And that I've seen that personally. She's very conscious of her role as an ER nurse, and she makes sure that patients know that she truly cares about them. There have been many great saves with critically ill patients and many tears shed for those who we could not save, each leaving an impact on Janet's life, as she strives to treat them all as family. When Janet was in her beginning years as a nurse, there were many wonderful nurses who took Janet under their wing, and shaped her into the nurse she is today. She hopes that she can pass on this support and encouragement to the new young nurses who make a difference in their lives as others have made a difference in hers. Not only is Janet being awarded with this award today, but she also received the President's Award in 2014 for her exemplary service. Janet, we're honored to present to such an extraordinary person this year's Most Outstanding ER Nurse Award.
So congratulations to those nurses, Emma, Janet, and Rosemary. I'm Tom McHugh. Next week is the week that we celebrate Nurses Week for all the nurses, and I see a few here in the crowd as well. So congratulations to all nurses, and let's celebrate next week. It is my honor to now present to you the Most Outstanding Paramedic of 2019. Jason Rice was hired by the Region of Durham Paramedic Services in May of 2007, just months after graduating from Loyalist College as a primary care paramedic. He immediately made an impact on the lives of the community and fellow colleagues in the industry. Jason has done something that only few paramedics have accomplished, upgraded his skill set to become an advanced care paramedic in his freshman year in the profession. Jay graduated from the Advanced Care Paramedic program at Durham College in 2009 and was promoted to an ACP just like his father was decades before. Jason is surrounded by a family of first responders and married the love of his life, Holly, who works for Durham Region Police Services. Jay and Holly have a very busy house at home as they have 3 young kids, aged 7, 5, and 2. For those who know Jay well, he is modest, humble, caring, and driven to succeed. Jason is highly respected by the Durham Region Paramedic Services family, and his peers were very excited to hear that he is this year's recipient for the Durham Region's Most Outstanding Paramedic Award. I think Jason should have come up. Congratulations, Jason, and thank you for your service to our community. Today, Jason has been accompanied by Gary Lewis, a superintendent for quality and development, and Brock Badashevsky, an advanced care paramedic and instructor.
Thank you, Jason, for your exemplary service to our community, and congratulations once again to all of our winners. Could we please have the winners return to the stage one more time, as I would like to call upon Betty Turcott from the Faith United Church to bless the award recipients. Sorry, Jason. It's all part of it, yeah.
We need to have one picture with the baby here, too.
People who know me know that you don't give me a mic and expect me not to use it. I just want to add my own experience in my life. My husband was 31 when he had heart failure. The paramedics, the emergency staff, the critical care unit, the surgeons, and the cardiologists who've cared for him all these years have been the difference in our lives completely. It wasn't expected that his life expectancy would be very good, and so we had a major anniversary celebration on our 20th anniversary because we didn't really expect him to see any more. This past summer, we celebrated our 60th wedding anniversary. His cardiologist calls him the poster boy for artificial valve replacements. This December, we celebrate 40 years with that valve. Let's just take a moment and take a deep breath and acknowledge the presence of the divine within each one of us and within ourselves. Spirit of life, we rejoice in the new life we see in springtime, that life is bursting out all around us. And we gather here to celebrate the miracle of human existence. Today we have learned how to care for ourselves so that we may enjoy each day in health and in wholeness. And we come together as a community to recognize the women and men who bring their skills and experience to help us in times of illness and distress. We recognize their training, their skill, their compassion. We acknowledge that they give of their time and their energy to help those who are in need. For their commitment to their chosen careers, for their selfless hours of toil, sometimes risking their own well-being for the benefit of strangers, we are thankful. So be it. Amen. Thank you.
Congratulations to all our award recipients again. We thank you all for looking after our community so well. I would also like to thank Barbara Turcott for her thoughtful blessings and the Faith United Church for the lovely food that they have prepared. Thank you very much. So our next speaker is going to kickstart our afternoon program. It's Dr. Bargava's little brother, Dr. Mukesh Bargava, who has come all the way from Coburg to be with us here today. Dr. Mukesh Bargava is an internal medicine specialist with a practice in Coburg. He's been in practice for 22 years. He attended medical school at Gandhi Medical College in Bhopal, India. His postgraduate training was at North Shore University Hospital in Forest Hills, New York. After finishing his training in New York, he practiced in Maine for 16 years before moving to Coburg. He is now the Chief of Staff at Northumberland Hills Hospital. His practice interests include internal medicine, cardiology, diabetes, and vascular neurology. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Mukesh Bargava.
Thank you. So, can you hear me in the back? Oh. Okay. So, is it clear? Sanjay, you can hear me? Okay, thank you. So, my topic today, as you can see, is science of happiness and heart health. And you might wonder why even we are talking about happiness and where's the connection between science and a physician talking about science of happiness. So, happiness has been researched over and over. A lot of people, a lot of philosophers have talked about happiness, and they have all come up with different definitions. Recently, an article was published in the newspaper that the most requested class or the most attended class at Yale University was a class on happiness. 1,200 people signed up to attend the class where the capacity was only 100. So it is an area of significant interest. So I started pursuing, and I said, okay, I'm going to learn about what is happiness, where's the science behind happiness, and clearly what is the connection to health, and I also have what can we do to be more happy. So let's set up as the first point, where is the connection between health or heart health and this? So 10 years ago, or almost 14 years ago, the Canadian Nova Scotia Health Survey was conducted, and they looked at heart patients, and they said, well, we want to figure out whether happiness has any connection to heart health. And do people who are happy or who are not happy, do they differ in their outcomes for heart health? And they figured out the answer was yes. They have a connection, and people who are happier live longer and survive better with the same kind of heart disease. And I would say, like, once I read this paper, the study is flawed. The study is flawed in the sense that people said, you know what, we'll question. Where two people would question, they will meet a person and say, does the person come across as a happy person or not a happy person? And then they looked at their event rates and heart attack rates and their blood pressure, and they matched it, and they followed these people. To me, the study is flawed because that is not how you measure happiness. You just can't look and meet somebody and decide whether they're happy or not. So, though it is a positive study in terms of supporting my conclusion, it has its own flaws. So let's talk about what are we going to talk in the next 15-20 minutes. We'll have 4 conversations, and this is just a conversation starter. And I think I can use this, right? So first is, where is it? Good? Yeah. Okay. So the first is of the 4 conversation is, what is happiness and why does it matter? The second is how to increase your happiness and spread happiness. The third is what are the key environmental factors around here? What influences happiness? And lastly is what is our personal habits that can change how happy we are. So, sounds reasonable? Okay. So, anybody in the audience, can you tell me what happiness means to you? Anybody, take a stab at it. Pardon? No pain is happiness. Pardon? Just part of it. The good nutritional base. Good food is happiness. Okay. Kathy, what is happiness to you? Family, together, our environment. Anybody here in the middle row? Being grateful is happiness. Okay. So let's see what people have said in the past. Happiness is the joy that we feel when we are striving for our potential. If you're trying to do, we gave out all these awards. This thing is... Now I'm happy. So people win awards, they get happy. People's talent gets recognized, they are happy. And so this is one of the definitions from the ancient Greeks. Michael J. Fox says, my happiness grows in direct proportion to my acceptance. If I accept who I am, I accept what I'm about, and I get comfortable with myself, my happiness grows. Aristotle said, happiness is a state of mind and a state of activity. If we are active, we are happy. But, if you look at the sources, Aristotle has been quoted many times, and so I don't know what he really meant, but there are many definitions he's given for happiness. Happiness means to be satisfied with what we have. A lot of people said, if I'm content, the word comes up. We have polled people, and people say, gee, if I'm content, then I'm happy. People have said happiness is a deep sense of serenity, fulfillment. It's a state that actually underlies all states and moods. So we could get angry, we could get upset, we could get jealous, but we are generally, a baseline state of happiness. So with that said, I said, I'm going to do my own research, poll people, ask a tons of people, even the person who gave the talk this morning about the cancer survivor. I said, what does happiness mean to you? And here's what most of us in modern day medicine say. Agreed on. One was each person's definition of happiness is different. There are very few people who will align on their definition of happiness, just like what you did in the room. Somebody said family, somebody said food, somebody said absence of pain. The other consensus was you know when you're happy, but you can't tell when the other person is happy. They may look happy, they may pretend happy, but you can't really tell if they are happy. So that is why I proposed that the first study was sort of not a very valid study, because you can only guess other people's happiness. I'm looking at around, a bunch of you. If I said, is this person happy? Is this person happy? I'm only guessing. The next conclusion was there's a difference between pleasure and happiness. So you may get pleasure in a variety of things. You get an award, you eat something that you really like, that might give you pleasure, but it may not give you happiness. And there's a distinction for most people once you think deeply. Happiness for most is not related to material things. None of you here said money is happiness. But we all say that it can bring us a little bit of pleasure. Material things may bring us joy for a short period, but it is beyond the material things. And most people agreed that if our needs are met, we are happy. Like this was the commonest theme. If I ask people, if your needs are met, if I ask Kathy, if your needs are met, would you be happy? Okay, anybody here disagree with that? If your needs are met. So with that, the question becomes, what are human needs? We said needs are met. Is it, is being beautiful, healthy, rich, famous a need? And if that is met, if that was happiness, there would be very few unhappy people in Hollywood, right? Because they're rich, they're famous, they're beautiful, but that is not what happiness is. So if you walk with me in this path of what are human needs, here's what Maslow's hierarchy of needs was described. The first is our physiologic needs. If we have a house, if we have food, if we are not cold, that is the foundation. That is the first thing. And once we get that, we want to be safe. We should not be at war with somebody. We should have friendly neighbors. We should not have theft. We should not have car accidents, and we should feel safe. So once physiologic needs and safety is met, then we want love. We want relationships. We want family. We want friends. We want to explore beyond that. And then we want esteem. We want recognition. We just recognized 4 wonderful people today. They came up with their family. That brings them happiness, right? That spreads happiness. We all clap. And then the last step is of self-actualization. You start to say, okay, how does this all connect to me? How does this all connect to the world? How does it connect to our environment? So this was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And where I started to lose here was this self-actualization business. What is self-actualization? What does that really mean? How do we apply it in practical sense? And because we are talking about the topic, or we are trying to connect our health to happiness. So what is self-actualization mean? A lot of religions, a lot of philosophers have talked about self-actualization, because I'm pretty sure the other 4 are self-explanatory in terms of our needs, safety, love, relationships, etc. So I said, if we can define our needs, so this was Maslow, but in my research and in my study of happiness, I said, I'm going to try to see what are human needs and what is the science behind it. So this science is not what I cooked up in my town or in my hospital. This is where a lot of people have said and agreed that these are the current day human needs. The first thing is people want certainty. They want certain element of certainty in their life. But guess what is the second item that they want in life to be happy? The second item is uncertainty. Because if you're always certain what is going to happen, you're always guaranteed, you think it'll make you happy, but we want a little bit of thrill. We want a little bit of uncertainty. We want a little bit sense of achievement. I don't know whether I'm going to win this Best Cardiac Nurse Award. Am I going to be recognized? Is my presentation going to go smoothly? So there is a little bit of uncertainty that brings about our thrill in our life. If we all knew that this is the date we are going to die, this is the illness, how we are going to die, life will become quite depressing. The third thing is we want to have significance and be meaningful. We want to have significance with our peers, our friends, our colleagues, at our church, at our temple, at our family. We just don't want to be insignificant, that we have no significance, we have no meaningfulness. The next one is, as Kathy said, family. This is connection. This is relationship. And when Kathy said family, Kathy, let me ask you, how do you define family? Right. So where you define your boundaries. So Kathy beautifully said that it is not just about blood relatives. It may be, whoever I am around, where my circle is. And so when people start to expand their relationship beyond, he is my brother, he is my sister, he is my blood relative, he's a Bhargava, he's not a Bhargava, and others, you define boundaries, and that is where people define, they're from Coburg, they're from Oshawa. And before you know, we are all a big, huge family, and the bigger you are, the bigger the happiness. The next thing is growth. All of us like to grow. And growth, you might think, gee, no, I'm retired. I don't want to grow. But if you're retired, you are still growing. You're growing your extended family, your circle of influence. You're growing your wisdom. There are many things that you grow. Growth is not just promotions and your job. And the last one, which brings about happiness, is contribution. What do you do back to the society? Rakesh here and his team, there is no reason why they are here today other than that they are looking to give back or recognize and spread happiness through their contribution of their time, their talent, their effort, their energy. I'm here to give a talk not because, this is some following I want to have. It is more about contribution back. If you learn something, you share it with somebody, and if I make a difference in one person's way of thinking of happiness, I feel good about it. So if these are our needs, how do we increase and spread happiness? So here's an exercise you can do, and this is an exercise you can do only in the privacy of your own thoughts. Nobody can do this for you. You can do this as a group, but let me walk you through somebody who did this. The exercise was you literally take a piece of paper, you draw a hexagon. And so they are, and I know it doesn't project as well, but you put these 6 items on 6 corners of the hexagon. Certainty, uncertainty, significance, connection, growth, and contribution. If you draw this hexagon on a piece of paper and then you say, where do I stand? Or where do I think, do I have enough certainty in my life? And a lot of people start with, do I have enough money in the bank that I will not run out of money? Others will think, do I have enough health? Do I have enough time? But whatever your definition of certainty is, you mark that point. And you do the same for the other 5, and you will come up with something of not a perfect hexagon. You will say, you know what? I'm not sure that I have that much certainty. I have an illness that every time I go to the doctor, they tell me something different. So I'm not that certain, and I wish there was more certainty. Some people might say, I have no thrill in my life. There's no uncertainty. I'm a loner. It's the same old day every day. There's no change. So you will figure out where you end up when you do this exercise, and you'll form an hexagon. And then you figure out, where do you want to be? What do you want your hexagon to look like? What gives you the most pleasure? Is it certainty? Is it significance? Do you want to be recognized? Do you want to be famous? Or do you want to be just like, I want to be a great friend to everybody? Because that is what each of our personalities are. So with that said, you will come up with the difference between what are you lacking. And you will figure out that, what I lack, and I'll tell you my example. When I did this, I said, I have a decent amount of certainty in my life. I think I have a decent amount of uncertainty. The place that I found was that I am not contributing back enough, and that is where I could do more, and I could increase my level of happiness. It is like, I went to school, I practice, I do all these things, but where am I giving back to society and community and friends and family and groups? So that was my find, and then you can figure out a plan for yourself. So does that make sense, that exercise? Did you do this mentally? Did it identify anything for you? And I'm not going to ask anyone of you, put you on the spot where your area of growth is, but if you do it and you do it over and over again, you will figure out what will drive your happiness almost instantaneously. So if you think it is about giving back, you might say, I'm going to volunteer something or do something. So what are the key environmental factors? Because the study that was done, the study about longevity and happiness, the longest study is done by Harvard. They followed people for 76 years. They said, we will follow you along and figure out who lives longer, what is the connection between longevity and happiness and health and other things. So the first thing they figured out was the culture of embracing social connections. It is not what your blood pressure is, it is not what your cholesterol is, and as much as we have heard this morning, people figured out those came later as lesser powerful risk factors. But if people had social connections, they live happier, they live longer. And it is very hard to measure. We haven't been able to capture anything like this from a medicine. The culture of appreciating kindness. the blessings that were read, if you just let it sink, it was tremendously kind, generous, and appreciating. The story about the son having heart disease at 31 and a limited life expectancy and 40 years later. So appreciating that improves longevity, improves happiness. This has been proven in this Harvard study, the longest study for longevity, and has been reproduced. People, there's a country called Bhutan, many years ago said, we are not going to measure the gross domestic product only, we are going to measure the happiness index of the country. This country doesn't do that well in terms of their overall happiness index. The world ranking is quite poor for a variety of reasons, but they were the first ones to try. Where do you think Canada lands in on the world's happiness index? We live in Canada. Where do you think? There are 170 countries. First. No. I wish. Almost. Maybe this group. But where do you think? Take a guess. We rank number 7. We rank number 7 in the World Happiness Index, but the difference is really small. But those are more social determinants of health, other things, but if we were to look at these, we do pretty well. The next thing that is an environmental factor is the community factor. When communities get together, do things. Those of you who lived through the ice storm back then, or you lived through, you've watched the show Come From Away. How many of you have watched that show, Come From Away, right? So the community came together. You saw that play. You saw the musical. It was very nice, and you saw how the community in Gander came across, and it eventually promoted happiness out of a major event. An open mindset. When people come here, like today's lecture, if you think about it, you heard about modern medicine, you heard about heart transplant, and then you talked about, Deepa talking about food. Like when our family gets together, what do you think the conversation ends up in terms of food? Everybody has an opinion. We don't agree with each other. You realize that. But it is having that open mindset, having that debate, having that conversation actually improves people's happiness, having a healthy debate and keeping your mind open. The next thing is competition. People say, if we are all complacent, if we are all just, agree and accept people how they are. Somebody asked me at one talk, if we accept people how they are, don't we become complacent and we'll never improve? The answer is you can't. That's not really true, because if you compete to be better as compared to who you are from yesterday, an hour before, that is what will drive happiness, and that will improve mankind in general. And believe in the tree concept. This is my personal favorite. We human beings start to think that we are it. There is nobody going to be after us. We are the most developed species in the world. God retired after He created human beings, and there will be no further evolution. We are the supreme organisms on this planet. That's really not true, and time will show us. We've been around for a few million years. People will evolve. So here's what I want to show you. What do you think this is? Part of a leaf. So this is actually right. This is part of a leaf. So if we just looked at the leaf and the leaf thought that they were it, the leaf was it, then we said, oh no, there's a branch. And then somebody said, no, there's a tree. And then somebody said, no, there's a forest. And then somebody said, no, there's the planet. We are the planet, healthy planet, environment. But really, we are in this, we are microscopic. What an ant is to us, we are even smaller than an ant. So don't think of us as the only person. This is about, and that is my tree concept lesson of spreading happiness, is if you think beyond yourself and that you are literally, we are all very small in the cosmos. So last closing slide is about what are the personal habits. We have talked about the environment, we have talked about the science, we have talked about the connection, but what are the personal habits? The number one habit that I find useful and beneficial to be happy is mindfulness. And it's a whole different talk. We can answer questions about mindfulness, but how to practice mindfulness. And there are many different names given: meditation, prayer, what have you. But mindfulness is really helpful. Feeling of gratitude, feeling thankful, like the lady there said, absence of pain. So that is clearly their habit of self-reflection. This is probably the most less utilized technique. Is we don't reflect on our own. We are quick to judge others. We are quick to judge the politicians. We are quick to judge people, a movie or what have you, but we don't reflect on ourselves, on our own action. And that really helps. Contributing to the community is what all of us are involved. It is in the Canadian Principles of Citizenship. And embrace positivity. I think one of my nieces, and Kamlesh and Deepa's daughter, talks about positivity in a great length, and she even had a motto, be positive, when she was running for a school campaign. You can't underestimate positivity. People will stop feeling pain if they are positive. If they become negative, they have negative thoughts, negative emotions, they will start feeling things that they can ignore just by thinking positively. It is called the mind-body connection, and if you don't believe it, try it. One of the techniques is called forest bathing. You don't have to go out in the forest and bathe, but if you just go out in nature, and you may have some pain, but if you go out in the nature, the positivity of nature, the birds, the trees, etc., will change how you feel pain, and you may not feel pain when you're out there. The last one is smile and have a sense of humor. I learned this from my third brother, who always makes people smile, who always has a sense of humor. And if we just smile at each other and we joke around, it might change how we think about life. So in summary, happiness is deeply personal. Happiness is relevant to you and people around you. I found understanding your needs is the step in right direction. But as I said, I'm still learning. I will probably learn more. But if you ask me today, this hexagon exercise I created personally, and it does point me in the right direction. As we said, the physical, the psychological, the social, all these factors play into happiness. And personal change in our habits can enhance happiness. And once you improve your happiness level, you will improve your health, and whether it is heart health or neurological health, and it is a science. It is not just there. So I would thank you, and I would ask you to spread happiness, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mukesh. That was wonderful. Happiness is Coburg to me, just down by the water, the peace of the beach. Right. So now we're going to try something a little bit different this year, guys. We're going to have all the speakers come back up on stage as promised. We're going to continue and try to answer any of your questions. Again, knowledge is power, so we're going to learn from these. So anybody that have any questions, Rishma, I think, is going to have the microphone floating around, and we'll answer as much as we can. And just as a footnote, if anybody wants to review the presentation at home, it is on the website under faithunitedchurch.ca. You can review all the presentations today.
Make sure they're on. It's on?
Yep.
Anyone with a question? Okay. This is Janki. She's our high school student volunteer at our clinic. So she had a question for Deepa.
Hi. So you emphasize that GMOs are negative to our health, but so far what I've been taught in school is that GMOs are only genetically modified so that we could protect our crops against the climate change, and instead of using pesticides, just make them more resilient. I just want to know your perspective on how GMOs are negative.
Yeah, that's a very interesting but a difficult question for me to answer. But I can tell you something about the GMOs. What are the GMOs? They modify the seeds and all so that the pesticides and all don't, in fact, they don't need pesticides then. And the studies on GMO, if you go into research and look at the studies, most of them are animal studies, and they have arrested the studies. They have arrested the studies at only animal level, and that also the lower animal level. They haven't, normally when a drug has to be approved for human use, that goes through the animal model, it goes to the bigger animals like the monkeys, and then the humans try it, and then only after it's been proven to be safe, it comes out. But the lobby for the food industry is so strong that what I have read is they have only arrested the studies at a very low level. So we don't know whether the GMOs are good or not. But yes, I agree that GMOs are needed because to feed the growing population of the world, especially in the poor countries and all. But looking at the incidence of cancer, heart disease and all, which is going up, even depression, mental health issues and all, people blame it on the GMOs. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Okay, right here.
I'd be interested to hear what the three of you have to say about the role of statins. I've been diagnosed with high cholesterol. I've been on statins now for 14 years, but I'm now reading that they are not the great panacea that they were when they were introduced, and that, in fact, we may not need to take them these days. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
Sure. So the question is, what do we think about statins, which are your cholesterol-lowering medications, popularly your Lipitor, Crestor, Pravastatin, Rosuvastatin, brand names or generic names. So here is our current understanding, and I'll tell you from experience too. So statins lower cholesterol, there's no doubt about it. The way they lower cholesterol is they inhibit an enzyme called HMG coenzyme reductase inhibitor, and that is what they're called. They decrease that. The theory and the practice is that if you decrease cholesterol, you will decrease blockages in the arteries. And what we have seen, like when I was in medical school, if somebody wasn't having ECG changes and a big heart attack, we didn't call it a heart attack. Now we find smaller changes. We found that people built hospitals around bypass. If you could find a surgeon who could do bypass, people built a hospital around this person who could do bypass because there was so much of a need. But now if you look at it, now we don't need that much. So the biology of disease has changed, and most modern day physicians will believe statins have played a role. This has not come without its fair price or risks. So statins do cause some significant problems. One, the commonest one that happens in around about 12% of people is muscle aches, to the point that you can literally do significant damage to your muscles. The second one that has been put up in the literature in the last few years is the increased risk of diabetes and the increased risk of memory impairment on people taking statins. Those are extremely small numbers, to the point that if you do the risk benefits and you say, if I made people live longer, did they develop diabetes because they live longer and they develop memory impairment because they live longer, or there's a cause to effect relationship? So in medicine, we like to have a cause to effect relationship, and as of now, there is no defined cause to effect relationship that this is what statins do to increase your diabetes or your memory impairment. So at the end of the day, I would say that statins are powerful medications to bring down cholesterol, and cholesterol is one of the many causes of causing blockages. It is not the only cause. The other thing that you said is people say after a certain age it is not worthwhile to take it. That is a concept in the last year or two. And that is true, because if we say you can't lower your cholesterol and think the blockage will not happen tomorrow, it is over a period of time. So if you say if you're 90 years old and you have other conditions, you may have risk of developing other conditions earlier and not have the benefits of doing this. But it is very hard as a practicing clinician to say, you've done well till 90, so we're going to stop your cholesterol medication today, because now you turn 90. I don't think that makes intuitive sense. But there's no science about that.
I'll add to this question a story. My father was a cardiologist. He had his bypass surgery at the age of 68. He led a very disciplined life. He passed away at the age of 90 from natural causes, as I call it. He had a pacemaker and had another heart attack at the age 80 or something like that. He was taking a cholesterol medication for quite some time. He asked me one day, probably when he was 86 or 80, is this doing me any good anymore? I said, that's a very good question. And I said, if you stop it, would it add extra years to your life? I'm not sure. But my guess is probably not at your age. You know you are leading other disciplined life. But if you don't want to take it, stop it, I don't think. But we'll leave the decision to you. So he said, oh, let me think about it. He kept on taking it till, I guess, age 88. He said, I don't think I need it. And he stopped taking it. So it does benefit. He lived a good, healthy life by taking cholesterol medication. He didn't start when he was age 68 because these statins were not yet developed at that time. So it does lower the cholesterol, does decrease incidence of heart attack and strokes. So, and has some side effects, as you mentioned. In my 37 years of practice, of this, statins have been only there for 33 years. I have had not one patient who had severe kidney failure, which you hear on the radio or TV ads, or muscle aches and pains in which muscles kind of dissolve. So, no.
I have a question about aspirin 81 milligrams. Okay? My mother had dementia from multi-infarcts, many strokes. So when I got to a certain age, I started taking 81 milligrams of aspirin. But I saw an article about, they're saying now, studies are saying it's not as effective as what we originally thought. So what are you thinking about that?
So the question is aspirin, and aspirin for prevention of your first event. So this is not about people who have had heart disease, who have had a heart attack. Should I be taking aspirin for prevention, correct? So there were 3 studies published almost back-to-back, 2 in the New England Journal of Medicine, and the other was, I think, Lancet or British Medical Journal. And they looked at this question. They looked at it 3 ways. Number 1 was, should healthy people, no medical problems, no high blood pressure, no diabetes, should they be taking aspirin? Then the second study was, people with diabetes, should they be taking aspirin? And the third was, people above the age of 70 or 75, should they be taking aspirin for this reason? All 3 of them concluded that there was not significant benefit in taking aspirin. In fact, there was a risk to taking aspirin. Now, this was for heart disease. Aspirin is taken for 3 reasons. It is also said that it decreases the likelihood of developing colon cancer, and there's also a thing about dementia. So the news articles that came about in the last year and a half were based on these 3 studies, and since then, worldwide, people have agreed that for primary prevention, meaning first prevention of a heart attack, there's no compelling reason to tell people to take aspirin. For colon cancer prevention, you've got to take aspirin for 20 years before you see the benefit. So you can do the math. If you start taking aspirin at 50, maybe you're preventing a colon cancer by the time you're 70, so it is not there. Dementia, really, the evidence is quite weak because there are 2 kinds of dementias, or in broad categories. One is the dementia of Alzheimer's type, where you have this deposition of a certain protein in the brain tissue, and that changes and causes dementia. And then you have the small clots, whether it is from atrial fibrillation or tiny mini strokes, thousands of them, that damage the brain. And that is where people say maybe aspirin may be valuable. So as of today, we are saying to people, for primary prevention, no value, maybe slightly risky. It is hard to convince people who have been doing this for 10 years, the same doctor that's been saying, continue asking, should I stop it? That is where you do shared decision.
Maybe I'll add this to a personal story.
Yeah,
You to give me the answer, I'll add this to it. So I'm 68. At the age of 50, when the warranty was over on this body, and I was taking blood pressure medication under control, cholesterol medication under control, no diabetes, but of course family history. Father had heart attack, didn't have a heart attack, just was found to have a problem in bypass surgery. At that time, everybody and their dog, if they are risk factors of heart disease like blood pressure, diabetes, though under control, and family history, you should take one baby aspirin to prevent the possibility of a heart attack, stroke. So at the age of 50, warranty is over, I started taking aspirin. After some time, I was having this spasm in the chest. I couldn't figure out, and the stress test, everything was normal. I found my fellow gastroenterologist, Dr. Oravec, and he put a scope down my throat, and he showed me a picture. He said, "This is the beautiful stomach lining, nicely pink, but they had little dots of hemorrhage all over." And he said, "You're having a spasm in your esophagus." So I said, "Ew." So he gave me medication, and I said, "Should I be taking aspirin?" He said, "No, these are just little hemorrhagic spots, little red polka dots. They may bleed, they become ulcer." I never had bleeding. So I stopped taking it. After 2 months of taking medication and stopping the aspirin, he puts a scope down, he gives me a picture, nice, beautiful, pink mucosal lining, no spots. So I stopped taking aspirin. After that was probably at the age of 10 years back, 15. And now the research has shown just because you have blood pressure under control, cholesterol under control, family history, don't take it. But if you had a heart attack, angioplasty or stroke, a baby aspirin, coated aspirin, would be helpful in preventing a second one.
I would like to know if you put that picture on.
And some people have said this change in recommendation is based on the widespread use of statins. Today's statins are given to so many people are taking statins that has changed the need for aspirin. And that is why the studies didn't show, because that is not a strong evidence.
If you have elevated cholesterol level, are there other things you can do without taking statin medicine?
I would like to answer that question because actually this is not a good forum for me to talk against statins, but I would let you all even go into research. There's a new herbal supplements. There's psyllium husk and there's flaxseed, which you can research by yourself and see. These are known to reduce statins. Like, to give you an example, India, from where I belong, is a poor country, and statins are expensive over there. Most of the people over there, they use psyllium husks, and in fact, even the mainstream cardiologists and doctors, they recommend it to their patients. If they have to recommend 20 milligrams, they will say, okay, just use 10 milligrams of statin because it's more expensive, and try to use 2 tablespoons of psyllium husk in your food. And similarly in China, where again, this is a poor country, red yeast rice, if you read about it, so you can go into literature. These are known to lower the cholesterol. So people with borderline cholesterol problems, which are not major and they don't have any heart conditions, they can definitely look into these and use flaxseed, psyllium husk, and or red yeast rice. Because a big population in the world are using them to lower their heart risks. But of course, if the cardiologist recommends the statin, please go ahead and have it.
So, this is where the debate part of this comes. It really depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to prevent a first event? Are you trying to reverse disease that you already have? You had a blockage and you're trying to reverse it. Or thirdly, you are just trying to maintain. You have some little blockages or some hardening and they are age-related. So if you are really trying to reverse blockages, and Dr. Ornish and others have shown that blockages can be reversed. We have seen them angiographically, people have blockages and they can be reversed. So if you're trying to reverse blockages, a combination of diet and extremely low cholesterol levels will reverse this. If you are just trying to make a difference, like red yeast rice, I tell people to use red yeast rice. It has a little bit of statin. That is what the chemical function is. We always have this debate of, yes, what we call natural and what is chemical is a very fine difference. What we package and refine. So I have my belief that these medications or statins are purified because where did they come from? They came from nature. They came from a certain fungus, right? So if you monitor that, but also treat to goal as what you're trying to do. We can debate this forever, but at some point we have to say, what does science show? What does evidence show? That it does show that if you have lower cholesterol levels, you have a lower chance of heart attack based on cholesterol. If you continue to smoke or use cocaine, you'll have heart attack due to a different reason. So.
Yeah, that was a good one. I'll just add a small personal story with my history. My mother, at the age of 53, had a massive heart attack, and all her life she would have, she's had many, many heart attacks, and of course I lost her 2 years back at the age of 90. So, but she didn't undergo any surgery, and but she was taking statins as well to lower her risks. Now, with me and my sister, we have probably the same genes. We do have a raised cholesterol. At times, my figures are high. But with natural means, we cannot tolerate statins. The problem with my sister who lives in Australia and me is we get severe muscle ache, and there's low energy, we have no power. So I cannot tolerate statins because it causes muscle problem. I tried with the CoQ10 also. So I'm managing my cholesterol pretty well, because the last time I saw my GP, I'm guilty that it was quite some time back. She said that you don't need to have statins, you're fine, you're just slightly borderline, just continue doing whatever you're doing. So I'm telling you what I'm doing for myself. But yes, if you have very high values and all, it's nice to have statins.
Yes, I'd like to thank all of you for the great information today. I'm sensing that your approach to healthcare is very holistic. So my question is, I've been known to like wine and dark chocolate, especially over the last couple of years. What are your views medically and holistically about the benefits of red wine and a really dark chocolate?
So let me ask you the question, brief question back. When you say red wine, where did you get this information that red wine is useful or healthy?
The usual place on the internet, and the antioxidants and resveratrol.
Right.
And everybody talks about it, right?
And everybody talks about it, and it is a social conversation. Right? And what about dark chocolate?
Dark chocolate, the same thing. For the past couple of years, I've done my very best to avoid sugar altogether, so I typically eat usually like an entire bar of 85-90% dark chocolate every night, because I understand it acts as a blood thinner.
So I'll tell you about what my views are based on study of. So in terms of red wine, the red wine was thought to be, it is beneficial. There's something in the skin of the grape that produces the red wine, a chemical called resveratrol, and this is the chemical that can help with anti-aging, and it can help with cellular repair, and this will be, if you can extract it out, and it is commonly present in red wine, but scientists said, maybe we can extract it out and make it a tablet and give it to you in concentrated dosages and make this happen. Studies didn't pan out that this is really helpful. Now, people said, when people drank wine, they socialized, and if they drank one or two, they were mindful, they were listening to music. Now, could that be the flavor that added to their health rather than the red wine? So we can debate back and forth, but there's no cause-to-effect relationship between resveratrol, the chemical component, or the alcohol content in red wine, because similar things were also found in white wine. So why are we beating up white wine for people who like white wine? The second part of the question was dark chocolate. So how do you define dark chocolate? So there in Coburg, there's a chocolate manufacturer, believe it or not. It's called the Hewson House. And so I met this person, and I said, and they were Swiss chocolate makers. How did you end up in Coburg, Ontario, making chocolates, and they said, oh, we like the place, and they make dark chocolates. And the battle with dark chocolate is to have the taste of chocolate and the medicinal benefit. The cocoa content for dark chocolate has to be around 70%. And it is very hard to make a tasty chocolate with 70% cocoa in it. It starts to feel bitter. So cocoa is beneficial, but in the dosages that we are trying to give, we are trying to package it as chocolate to make it palatable to people and claim health benefits. So this, I think, is more of an industry spin rather than that eating chocolate we can help. I don't say to people who come after a heart attack, start drinking 2 glasses of wine with dark chocolate from this company, because that just is not scientifically backed. So that would be my answer. Those were your 2 questions.
It's 1:30, but let me add a little, we'll have one more question here. About wine, I don't drink alcohol, but occasionally I do have wine. My feeling why wine benefits you is, as he said in his last statement, when you're drinking wine, you generally relax, you're listening to music, or you're having good company. It's a relaxation and happiness that brings you. I think that's what gets your blood pressure down, or your blood pressure already low, Paul, as you said. It makes you feel good, and that's the benefit. Dark chocolate, it makes you happy too. See, it's all what gives you happiness brings it down. No scientific research to prove it, but that's what it is. Okay.
I would say very weak scientific research.
We have questions here too. 2 last questions.
Sure, just briefly, the high-fat, moderate protein, low-carb is very popular these days, the keto, etc. What is your take on that?
Okay. So think about it. You started hearing about low carbohydrate, high fat, ketogenic diet in the last 2-3 years. So what changed in the last 2 to 3 years? The Nobel Prize for Medicine, I think 3 years ago, was awarded to this person who said, what do we know about aging? Or why do we age? Why do our hair start to turn gray after a certain time? Or why do we lose hair? We can look at somebody's skin and tell that what age they are, etc. And this was the Nobel Prize was awarded to something called the science of autophagy, which means that at a cellular level, how do our cells repair themselves? And what promotes the cells to repair faster, the cells to be effective. So those of you who are very interested in this, you can just Google the term autophagy and you will see labs, etc., and there's science behind that. So that is a very hot area of research. The connection between food and autophagy is one that was made, that if the cells are constantly fed food, you keep on eating, that like we do. We start with breakfast. We are told, most of us were told breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You should start with breakfast, because, and that was true when it was said. But now that we have so much abundance of food, then we got introduced with the 11 o'clock snack time. How many of you remember in your childhood, because the average age is above 50 here, so how many of you remember that there was a snack time at your school time? Just the new ones, right? The snack time is a new concept. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? The snack time and the bedtime snack and the diabetics, to prevent hypoglycemia, etc. So we started feeding our body much more continuously and did not give ourselves time to repair, is what autophagy is telling us. So that came the story of the intermittent fasting, the ketogenic diet, and these folks said, if you starve the cell, it is actually the cell is repairing itself and your aging process slows down. The ketogenic people said that instead of using carbohydrates, if you don't feed carbohydrates, your body will take away fat from the stored fat, burn it, because it needs energy, right? So you lose weight. So we look at the phenotype, meaning how you look, as the marker of health. If you lose weight, you look trim, you must be healthy. even if you are metabolizing an alternate source of energy. So for weight loss, ketogenic diet works. It done in a reasonable fashion will be effective. I have personally taken care of people in our ICU in Coburg who were on a ketogenic diet and were in a coma of sorts, a metabolic coma, that was probably the hardest to treat. We were giving them insulin from one arm and sugar from the other because we had deranged their metabolism. Our body regulates our acidity and alkalinity of our body extremely precisely. So tinkering around with that system of metabolizing should be done with care and almost under supervision. You don't want to be figuring out by urine dipstick whether you're peeing ketones in that. That is a little bit of extreme. So that is what I would say about ketogenic diet. For weight loss, it is good in moderation, not a long-term solution for most people. And the low carbohydrate diet is a reasonable option, but that doesn't mean that it is a high-fat diet. My philosophy in terms of diet is similar to Deepa's in saying, eat closest to nature, prepare your own food, know where it came from. One registered dietitian told me if your food comes through a window, it's bad. If it comes in a foil, it's bad. And Rakesh says if it tastes good, it is bad. I don't agree with that. He said if it tastes
what
good,
I say, if it
out.
tastes good, spit it out.
Right.
And I'm
So
glad
you
my
can
wife
see
is
the
not
extreme.
here. If he hears it, make your own food, I'll be cooking every day.
No, his wife cooks wonderful food. Right,
there she is. Oh, you heard it. Okay.
Yeah. She changed my dietary habits. I used to be a rice, potatoes, and lentils guy all the time. And when I first came to Canada, she changed my dietary patterns for me. Thank you.
One last question over here.
Yeah, mine was just a quick one on, I know you mentioned about CQ10 for heart failure, but I'm regarding blood pressure. Is it of any use, and is there science behind that?
So the question is coenzyme Q10. You mentioned that it is good for heart failure, but is there science behind it for hypertension and other things, correct? And arrhythmias, yeah.
Not that I am aware of. I've not read that.
Right, so I'm going to tell you a resource. It is called National Institute of Complementary and Alternative Medicine. It is the equivalent. It is a branch of National Institute of Health. It is posted on both of our website, I think, HeartCare's and ours. And you can literally click at any element that you want or any disease, and it will tell you where the scientific evidence is. It is a good body of evidence, and because, as Deepa had said, not all studies are thorough. So this is summarized evidence that you may find useful on many of these alternative techniques. That is what I rely on most of the time.
Thank you, Rakesh, Bukesh, and Deepa. And can you just imagine sitting around the Bargava dining room table having discussions about supper? Pass the salt, we have no salt. Pass the chicken, we have no chicken. I'd just like to be a little fly on the wall. So I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of everyone here today to thank all of our speakers for donating their time to educate our community. I'd also like to thank all those here today at Faith United Church who have been instrumental in ensuring that everything has run so smoothly. To all our volunteers from Faith United Church and HeartCare, we thank you for your hard work and dedication to our cause. And last but not least, we thank everyone who came out today to learn and support this event. This day would not have been possible without such a great and receptive audience. We welcome any feedback you may have, and we hope to do this again next year. So, finale, good morning, everyone. Well done. Pleasure to meet everyone.